Well, here we are again. It is a Wednesday. It is Ask Dave Fennoy Anything here on Facebook Live, and I'm Dave Fennoy. A couple things to jump in. This is, Ask Dave Fennoy Anything, so if you got questions, let's have them. I'm not noticing anyone. Oh, there we go. There, it always takes a little bit of time. People send me demos or ask me to review their demos. I do it as often as I can. I can't always do it. Sometimes it's not just sending them to me, but my website is such and such. Can you go to my website and go through it and find out how wonderfully I'm doing or how terribly I'm doing? And I don't always have time for that kind of thing. What's going on, Thomas? Laura, Ryan, Aaron, Jennifer, Sam. But from time to time, I do, as often as I can. And a young lady I had met at some convention a while back sent me her demo and asked for a critique. And I had a little time, so I did. And once again, she has some talent. She has a nice voice. She's not quite there yet, but with some help, she can get there. But her demo did not represent her well. Not because she can't do the reads, but once again, wrong form. Not what the industry is expecting. Before you break the rules, you got to know the rules. And I'm just going to make some suggestions that if you're about to make a demo, if you're thinking about making a demo, go to some agents' pages. Go to the demos and listen to some demos. If you know the names of some voiceover talent that you like, sometimes that's not, but go to the demos and see what they're like. What does a good animation demo sound like? A good demo for commercials, for narration. There is a form. There are going to be, 8, 12, 14 spots or pieces of spots. For commercial demo, it's going to be 60 seconds long these days. It might get shorter, and we even have our, 5 and 10 second demos of individual spots or individual moods. But don't spend the time and money to put something together that the industry is not going to listen to. It's too easy to do to find out the information. That brings me to something else. One of the best things about the voiceover community is that it is a community. If you go on Facebook, there are a number of voiceover groups. Whatever town you live in, there are probably some voiceover meetup groups or workout groups. And the reason you want to do that is because none of us know everything. Perhaps you are a fantastic actor with a wonderful voice, but you know nothing about equipment. Perhaps you've got great equipment, but you know nothing about how to get work. Or you know somebody else who has an agent, but you don't, or you don't know about demos. This is a community that is very willing to help one another. Some things cost money, but a lot of things are free. I mean, here I am. Every Wednesday I can be to answer any questions I can. And the reason I do it is, people helped me. And I'm a great believer in, it's from all religions, that which you give, you will receive back tenfold. So I'm not going to lie. People listen to me and think, oh, wow, let me take some classes with him. But I'm not asking anybody to, you came X number of times to Ask Dave or anything, so now sign up and take some classes. No, I enjoy doing this. Makes me feel even more part of the voiceover community. And that's that. Anyway, let's get to some questions here. What's happening? Hey, from the I-5. Careful now. I like that, Thomas. Huzzah. Happy Wednesday, right back at you. Can you talk about the ways to prevent the dreaded announcer voice? One of the things, there are some things that happen in your voice that that will lean you into the announce. I have a voice that very easily will go into the announce. It's kind of deep and round, and it's not quite as pretty as it used to be. A little more jagged around the edges. But it's very easy for me to open my mouth and suddenly I am Mr. Announcer. And part of that is voice placement, and part of it is that whole listening to your voice thing, over enunciating thing, that talking louder than you need to. Typically an announcer is going to pick up the volume and push it right here. And he's going to make sure there is this rhythm to what he's doing. And what happens is you're louder than you should be. You're enunciating more than you should. And you're adding a little sing-song to what you're doing. If that's the kind of voice you have, and that's the kind of read you have, I don't want you to necessarily throw it away, but you need to be able to do something else. I still get to do my announcer voice in a lot of things. It's an easy go-to. If you've got it, great, but you don't want to be stuck there. And I've known a lot of guys that came out of the old school announce that when things started changing and they weren't looking for Mr. Big Voice with to sell you products, come on and buy because I've got the big voice. You're going to listen to me. When that started going away, a lot of guys couldn't make the transition. They were too stuck or unwilling to go through the pain of letting go. And sometimes that's just it, letting go. A lot of times I'll hear from somebody that, they say, well, people tell me I have a great voice and I should be doing voiceover. And those folks tend to lean into the listening to their voice and trying to make sure that their voice sounds wonderful. And when you're trying to make sure that your voice sounds wonderful, now no longer are you connecting to the people you want to connect with. You're performing this voice thing. And that's just not believable. Once again, you can play a great character like that. There are going to be some times that's called for, usually as a parody of something nowadays. But you need to get away from that and be able to just be one human being talking to another human being. Now, when you said prevent, now I didn't go through for prevent. I said get rid of. Just talk to people. To prevent it, just believe in you, your worldview, and that you are enough without adding this extra so-called sheen. Hey, Dave, how you doing? Michael Roberts. Maurice Scott, what's up? When you're writing when are you writing a training book that compiles all the amazing wisdom and advice you have? It would be on my prepaid list. I think about it. I have not sat down and written it yet. Now, when I'm doing webinars or when I'm doing workshops, I have PDFs that I use for that are kind of like that. But I haven't put it into book form, and I'm thinking if I get around to writing a book, it'll be a combination of life story and voiceover tips. So you'll have to put up with one to get the other. So if you'll get the life story and tales of things in my life along with a voiceover training, or if you wanted voiceover training, you're going to get tales of my life, whatever. Anyway. Guten Abend, Herr Dave. Yes, a little German there, huh? You're very welcome, Daryl. And what's going on, Molly Page? Tommy Graffman. And a little background. Okay, life story. Molly Page, back when I was in radio, Molly Page was a traffic person who became a friend. Tommy Graffman Mac My Day. If you have a Mac and you have a problem, you want to get in touch with Tommy Graffman. You can find him on Facebook, and he is just the best. Now, you will have to put up with the jokes. I'm sorry, but, you got to take the bitter with the sweet. How do you give a conversational read without losing any liveliness in your voice? Well, not everything is lively. And haven't you ever had a conversation that was lively and also a conversation that wasn't so lively? As human beings, sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're sad, and everything in between. Sometimes we're tired, sometimes we're energized, and everything in between. And what you really are trying to find is that place in yourself, that you, the worldview coming out and talking to somebody about whatever it is that you're talking about, whether it's a commercial, a narration. And sometimes it's going to be here. Man, if you could only get this product, you're going to love it. It's amazing. And sometimes it's going to be, if you've got such and such a problem, you need to take care of it with this. Both of those can be real and true and connect. It's what does the copy call for? Part of that is tuning in to you. Hope I answered that right. I think one of the problems, what you just said there, how do I do this without losing liveliness? That assumes that lively is what you're going to always want to find, and it's not. What you want to be is someone who's connecting to people here and here. And, sometimes that is being the prototypical millennial voice or the prototypical guy of a certain age or girl of a certain age voice with a certain background. Somebody that loves country western and they're from the South. Or somebody that loves blues, baby. That blues guy, he just, whoever that character is, portray them as real. Dean Moose. Hey, Dave, 2 different questions for tonight. If you had to start all over today, please, what would be your first 3 steps to get the momentum and bank deposits? Okay, that's 1. All work and no play. Well, So what are you looking forward to most, non-VO related, because of the platform that you have landed on? Okay, I'm going to take a sip of tea for that one. If I had to start all over today and I knew nothing about voiceover, but people had said, oh, you got a nice voice and maybe you should do this. One, I would go on the internet and find as many free things as I could about voiceover. I'd find my free things. I would find Bill DeWeese's free things. I would find Nancy Wolfson's free things. I would find every teacher out here. I would go to their websites and find the things that they are giving away for free. That would do a couple of things for me. 1, probably give me a pretty good foundation, and 2, get me used to what the jargon is, so that once I started spending money on classes and private lessons, the language wouldn't be a surprise. You don't want to spend too much time trying to translate for yourself when you're paying money by the minute and you're missing what they're trying to tell you because you're not quite sure you understand what it is they said. So that would be something I would do. I would spend some time finding out who the people were who were making money and in what ways, and try to figure out what does my voice, what does my particular talent lend itself to mostly. Should I be a narrator? Should I do TV promos? Do I want to do video games and animation? What are the opportunities? And then I'd want to find out who the best teachers were. and start taking some classes from them. And I would probably visit a number of different teachers, take maybe a one or two here or there to find out who I related to, whose language spoke to me. I would find out what good demos were. First, I'd have to find out that there were demos. I'd start looking at putting together a web page and what it would take to get a studio. I'd do bit by bit. Everybody's got a computer, so I'd probably want to add to that a microphone. It might be as simple as an Apogee or, the Rode or a Blue. I'd find out what I needed to do to create a space for myself to record. I would find out where voiceover groups are on Facebook and in real life and start showing up at some of those places and not spending a whole lot of time talking, spending a lot of time just listening. And when I talked, I'd be asking questions. I would try to find out who the people are who could help me the most, who does the best demos, who builds the best websites. Now, you can't do all of that at once. You don't want to just... I met a guy at a convention. He was an older guy who was retired. I hope he had some money. He had bought the best of everything. He must have spent $20,000 in equipment in his first 6 months in voiceover. And he was just proudly telling me these things. And I hope he's doing well. I hope he is making a living at this point at it. But I don't think that's the way to go. I play tennis, and when I miss the ball, Sylvia, how are you? Used to play your husband all the time. When you miss the ball, you look at the racket. It's not the racket's fault. So it's not that microphone's fault. It's not your recording equipment's fault. If your reads suck, it's you. So I'd work on that the most. It would be a step-by-step program. I would not drop a lot of money to begin with. I'd step in easy, and on. I might even, knowing what I know now, I'd take some acting classes because it is acting. What was that other? What do I do? Well, I walk my dogs, I play tennis, I play backgammon, I'll hang out with friends of mine, I go to concerts, I go to plays, I sleep. Sometimes the most fun thing to do in the world is take a nap. But, yeah, there you go. That answered it. Thanks. Yeah, the blues voice, baby. David Baxter. That's not David Baxter, my cousin, is it? No. Hey, Dave. Oh, this is your cousin, David Tate. I've been charged with doing some voiceovers for training videos. Not usually exciting stuff. Any advice? Yeah, just be you, man. You got a great personality. Just tell the story. Just don't even worry about trying to be other than who you are. One of the things about our society now, not everything is good, but one of the things that I think is more positive than not is we have rejected the phony person talking. We've rejected the guy talking to us like this. Hey, how you doing? I am a professional voice. We've rejected that voice in favor of a voice that we believe, that we connect with, that touches our heads and our hearts. Sometimes it's been described as we're looking to hear from somebody who sounds like us. And sometimes that happens when you say, I'm going to vote for George Bush because he'd be a great guy to have a beer with. Maybe not the reason to elect a president because, he's kind of like me. But in terms of who we accept information from now, we want to be able to relate to them as a human being. If we can stop doing the thing of not believing real experts, scientists, doctors, and just going with the thinking, the American way of my lack of knowledge is just as good as your knowledge. Yeah, I got an opinion. It's based on nothing, but hey. So, David, just be you. You know your stuff, and I know what your classes are going to be, and you know your stuff in that area, man. So, just be you, and that includes your humor. Just be you. All right. What's a few features to keep in mind when doing characters or accents to keep from sounding like you're doing a parody of them? Wow, that's a very good question. And a lot of times I live in that question, doing various accents. Am I insulting whatever the group of people are whose accent that is? Because very often the accents that we're doing are based on, oh boy, I don't need that now. Really? I don't even know if you could see that little pop-up on my screen there. Very often the accents we're doing of people from this place or this group, we started doing because we thought it was funny. And there's a fine line there. I try not to do accents just to be funny, but to be real. If the character's funny, okay, fine, the character's funny. But I'm looking not to insult groups of people, and at the same time I be maybe trying to get a laugh. Tough one there, because we're a very sensitive society now. There are things I won't necessarily try to do, and I would suggest some people not do. Partially because you may insult that group, not meaning to necessarily. May just display a lack of your sensitivity, and we all have some lack of sensitivity in some areas. And in terms of, Latin voices, Black voices, Asian voices, for the sake of everybody getting work, I don't like to say white people playing Black people, other people playing people that you're not. It's going to happen from time to time. But if you're the casting person, take the time to find somebody from that group who can do that part. It's a little annoying. I know in some video games now there have been several cases of white women playing Black women in video games. And I'm not saying it should never happen, but when it's a major, major part, take the time to find a Black actress. Take that time. All right. What's up, Donovan? I know you don't like audiobooks, but what about documentary narration and corporate e-learning? It's not that I don't like audiobooks. It's that I don't like doing audiobooks. I got in trouble at a convention. I had mentioned that, I'd done 3 and hoped to never do a 4th. And coming up behind me in the next panel was an audiobook woman who just basically, she didn't use my name, but I knew she was talking about me. And she was very upset. And, I pay for my children's education and pay my mortgage and with this money. And I was like, all I'm saying is I don't want to do it. And we should be able to do the things we want to do. If you love doing audiobooks, great. More power to you. It's not me. Now, to answer that question, really, I love narration other than audiobooks. I don't want to be in the closet for 8 hours reading and reading and reading and reading and reading and then having to edit my mistakes, and I won't send it to an editor because I don't want anybody to know I make mistakes. But other kinds of narration I really enjoy. When I get an opportunity to do something for National Geographic or Science Channel or Discovery Channel, I am thrilled. One, I learn a lot. And two, it's, your session is going to be an hour or two, and that's it. And you're saying this, and then you're seeing the pictures and the interviews and so forth and so on. So it's a whole different feel than doing audiobooks. I'll tell you, the audiobooks I do like doing is when I am not the narrator of an entire book, but I'm playing a character in a book. And there are a number of audiobooks, crime novels, mystery novels, and whatnot that are being recorded now with several actors, playing the various parts, especially if the book is told in the first person. I'm a part of a crime novel series. I'm playing an FBI agent, and I'll tell you more about that when I can. And those are fun, but they're kind of like being in a video game. You're playing a character. And that is a gas. And there's more and more of that happening. It's very much like the old radio dramas. And once again, that's another area where you may want to look for work. And the corporate and e-learning, sure, it's great. And there's more money in the corporate and e-learning in a total business than in a lot of other places. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. I had a session today. I do a lot of children's education books, which is a whole different kind of read, because you have to make sure when you're talking to children or reading them a story, you have to make sure that they understand everything. And, you're kind of in that. And that gives you a chance to be that person that has a little more sing-song in their voice. All right. In reference to the above question, who would you advise getting specific accent training from? There are a number of really good people out there who do wonderful accent training. I personally don't learn well from someone teaching me the accent, from someone who gives me the rules of what this letter sounds like this instead of that. I do it more like a musician who's learning to play the guitar and doesn't read music. I listen and imitate, listen and imitate, listen and imitate. And that's what works for me. But there are some good people out there, and I bet if you just Google that, you're going to find a couple. And I am me, and I'll give you a couple names. Hey, Alina, how you doing? William, Renee, Jim Tasker. Love it when some of the best are tuning in and listening. Nathaniel J. Brown. Hey, Dave, I love tennis. And yes, if you drop the ball, it's definitely your fault. Absolutely. See, Jim Tasker, you have a terrific voice, Dave Fennoy. Well, thank you. And as we both know, Jim, because you have a terrific voice too, it ain't really about the voice. That's what people notice. But they notice the voice because the read's so good. That's, I can't think of the number of people with wonderful, deep, rich, beautiful voices who've approached me about voiceover, and we sat down and read some copy, and they were terrible, just terrible. And then you don't notice the voice. Well, you kind of notice it, but you notice it, ooh, wow, with all that voice, how come you can't do this? And I have a saying, the more beautiful your voice, the faster bad acting shows up. Luc de Villars, I have been following your tip on reading out loud for at least 15 minutes every day or more, and I've finally found that my biggest flaw when speaking English, articulation and pronunciation. Well, thank you, and it's doing better. Thank you dearly. If you see more, if you will do any game show festival in Europe, don't be afraid of a big burly bald guy comes to you and will offer a fine wine bottle because it will be me. And thanks to your wisdom and all I've learned here, I have been invited to present my VA works on European game shows again. Thank you. Well, you are welcome. Wow, that makes me feel good. we need to read out loud because we need to get better at reading it out loud. We need to get better at seeing the words and understanding them. I know sometimes the writing's so small in the corner of the computer there. And as I get older, I realize I need things to be bigger. And I've had some students who are reading on their iPhones, and I don't suggest that. If it's the last thing in the world, you have an audition, you're in your car, you got to get it done. You happen to have your little iPhone mic, and so you can do it in your car where it's quiet, and that's the only place, and it needs to be in the next 15, 20 minutes. Okay, fine. But you do yourself a disservice if the copy isn't big enough for you to really see it clearly. It takes a certain amount of brain power to see the words, recognize what they are, understand what the sentence is saying, what the flow is saying, because you're looking at a group of words. I tell people, don't read the words, read the phrases. And if you're having a hard time, is that word this or that? Is that letter this or that? Is that number this or that? Just that amount of time is going to pull you out of a conversational read. And it may not be enough that you really think you're out of it, but that person who's listening on the other end is going to hear it. They may not know exactly what it is, but it's just not going to sound right, and they're going to click to the next audition. Make sure that when you're reading out loud, that what you're reading is big enough for you to see. Over the years, doing voiceover, I've had to read a lot of marked up scripts. I don't know why they still send out auditions sometimes with tiny, everything else will be big until they get to what you're supposed to read and it's tiny. Well, fortunately, I don't print anything anymore. It's on a computer and I can make it bigger or smaller. A lot of times, okay, I'm getting down into the nitty-gritty of some of the things I do when I get an audition. I'll get an audition and I will copy and paste it into Word, and then I will make everything bigger. I'll highlight it. I'll make it bold. I don't want to have to spend any time deciphering what is this, what is this, what is this, what is this. If it's a partner read, and a lot of times, so for a video game, it'll be dialogue, and there's other dialogue. Well, I'm going to highlight what my lines are. And no, this is not the bullshit, my line, bullshit, my line. It's just though I don't have to worry about recognizing that that's my line, and now that's my line, and now not. It's there. Because it does take a little time to see, recognize. You know how it is when you see a word that you haven't seen before. And that happens sometimes. Especially if you haven't pre-read the script, which happens often in video games and commercials. Maybe you booked a series of commercials and you auditioned on one, and you get there and they've got 5. Well, you haven't read those other 5 commercials. And, we all need to be better sight readers. And those are usually those cases. The work I was doing today, children's books and stories, and it's sight reading. And typically you're going to do 2 takes. And for me, it's like, okay, I'm going to do that 1 take. And when it's really going well, I'll get 1 take in and they'll love it. More often than not, though, I've kind of found my way through that first take. And then in the second take, I get it. And then sometimes, you get gremlins in your head and it's written a little funny. Your brain, as you're reading, expects a certain flow. You've said ABC, and you're thinking after that, I'm going to get D, E, F, G. But sometimes somebody has written it a little differently. Their histrionics, their wording is different than what your brain is expecting, and that kind of thing can make you stumble. Sometimes it's let me get that. So you want to be as good a reader as you can, so that when you get to those problems that you are going to get to, you're not also worried about just reading in general. So read out loud as much as you can. Early in my career, and I heard from a lot of people, go read for the blind. I know people who will go and read children's stories for children. All of that is wonderful training. People used to read newspapers out loud. Anybody get newspapers anymore? But read out loud as much as you can. Read poetry, children's books, whatever you can. Read out loud as much as you can. It will serve you. Okay. David Baxter, cuz so much. Oh, thank you, Linda. Yes, say that authenticity is without excuse. Michael, you know, and you ask the best questions. I love it. My video game demo has some accents on it, including an Asian sensei. So that's not kosher now? No, I'm not saying that at all. I did a game yesterday. That was yesterday. I did a game yesterday where I was playing a Chinese guy, kind of Chinese. It was kind of sort. I'm not saying you can't ever do it. I'm just saying we all need to be sensitive to it. Too often we go too far with something. That's all I'm saying. There's not a fine, hard line. I mean, we look at society now and the number of people that, are, showing up in blackface. Gosh, I didn't know that was a problem, blackface. We all do it. Well, no. There are some things that you should not do. And once again, it's not a hard, fast rule. I play a lot of Africans, a lot of Jamaicans. I know there are Africans and Jamaicans out here with real African and Jamaican accents. And I'm not saying that, I shouldn't do it and they should get the job. But we want to be careful of excluding people who could do the job from any of these jobs. A little job I was doing the other day, it's a small job. Small company, just wanted to work with people they knew, and we actually ended up deciding to make that character Asian. It wasn't necessarily written that way, but the director, let's give him a little of that kind of feel. So yeah, but you go back and you look at, the Tarzan movies when you were a kid, and you guys don't watch Tarzan movies or didn't. I'm of an age where I did. And, you were looking at Tarzan movies, and there were some movies where the natives were white. Not to mention the whole Tarzan thing. I mean, that's just insanity. But the number of times you are watching a Charlie Chan movie, and it's a white guy that they've done something to his eyes. There were Asian actors that could have played those major roles. The video games that I was talking about, where there was a white woman playing a black woman in a major part, there were black women who could have played those parts. And once again, it's not a hard, fast rule, but we need to be more sensitive as a society about those things. And actually, most of us, I think, are. So no, your video game demo is okay with the sensei on there. Do you ever run across a script that you're just not feeling? What do? Oh, man. Of course, we run across scripts that you're just not feeling. Sometimes, you get an audition, and I'm going to cover a couple of things, Jim. You'll get an audition for a promo. You're killing it in promos and trailers. And maybe you're not quite feeling the feel of the TV show that they're they've sent you, or maybe you're just not quite feeling the feel of that movie that you're doing. Now, because the promo reads and trailer reads are a little more stylized, you can get away more, I think, with I'm giving the style and I'm dialing in just a little bit of, oh, it's epic, so I'm going to give it that epic feel. Or it's horror, so I'm going to give it that horror feel. Or it's a comedy, so I'm going to give it that. I think it's a little harder sometimes with a commercial or with a character that you don't understand. You don't quite feel who that character is. And then it takes a lot of time and research. Also, sometimes we're just not right for the part. I'm not going to be playing 20-year-old guys anymore. I can, 30s and 40s I can get away with. Can't play the kids. So sometimes that's it. That our voice print does not sell what it is they're trying to sell. And there's enough work out there. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what, this isn't for me. And I get a number of auditions. And sometimes I'm, why'd they send this to me? None of us can do it all. When I'm teaching, sometimes we'll give a read on something that I know I would never book. The read might be good, but it's not going to book because it's not what they're looking for. I would have done a good job had the character been older or, more like me. But what I'm doing it for is to demonstrate the acting. And having been on the other side of the table from time to time, I've seen a good actor come in and really do a wonderful job on an audition for a part, but they just weren't right for it. So sometimes when you're just not feeling it, you just got to let it go. Not your fault. Oh, Jeff Brown, Uncle Dave. Jeff is one of the best comedians and comedian writers out there. And I just love you, brother. David Layla, thank you for sharing all your great knowledge. Oh, you're welcome. Eliza, I was going to tell you that. Okay, I was going to tell you in private, but you wrote it up, so I'll mention. Eliza Jane Snyder is wonderful. She has spent her life going around the world and learning accents. And she really, really knows her stuff. So if you want to learn accents and you want a very specific method for doing it, she's wonderful at it. I met a young man in London who is going to be coming on. We'll talk about him a little later. Not today, but later. I was just about to suggest Eliza. Yeah. She's great. And Crispin Freeman, another great voiceover actor for video games and other things mentioned there. Rhonda Alexander, wonderful suggestions. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Stefano Biga, without any prep, how do you handle reading a line in the correct subtext? Well, in the world of video games, that's a lot of what we do. When you audition, that's when you create the character. You'll come up with whatever the voice is and the feel of that character. And then you send your audition in a week, 2 weeks, 2 months, a year, however long it takes. You get the call, you go in the studio, and now they hand you the whole script. And what they'll do is they'll play back for you what you did. So what I do is not try to just come up with a particular voice for a character. I want to come up with a worldview. What is this character's attitude? How does this character feel about everything? And I tell people all the time, I want you to pay less attention to the words and more attention to the condition of that character. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they doing? What's the relationship with whoever it is they're talking to, even if the person they're talking to is themselves? What's the pre-life? What just happened that the character is saying what the character is saying? That's the most important thing. My students will hear me say all the time, the words are only important in that they give detail to what your character is thinking and feeling. We spend way too much time enunciating and trying to make the words dance in some sort of way, when they will do the dance if we play the character. Forget about, I'm going to say it like this. I'm going up here. I'm going down there. I'm pausing here. I'm doing this here. Technically, you may be in a session and they may say, give me a pause there, whatever. Fine. We need that a little faster. We are artists. We're also technicians. But you concentrate on playing the character. And that's in commercials as well. In animation, in commercial, still the same. To a certain extent, in everything else, narration, although, narration can be a little more stylized, definitely promos and trailers more stylized. But be the character. And the words, stop worrying about the words, worry about being the character. And the words will come out like they're supposed to. Da-da-da-da-da-da. By the way, I'll mention I'm doing a free webinar next Thursday. You'll have to sign up on GoToWebinar. Next Thursday, 6 p.m. on GoToWebinar. And we'll be covering narration, TV promos, video games, and auditioning. Some of the secrets to having good auditions. And go to the GoToWebinar. You'll find it on my page. I think I mentioned it here. And sign up, and we're going to have a good time. Some people are going to get a chance to read. Danny O'Leary. Hey, Dave, when directed to read something conversational, but the copy is written more formally, is it okay to relax the read with contractions or other casual words, like saying wanna instead of want to? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because we do not say, I'm going to go to this place. And all too often when we're reading, we are way too concerned with the enunciation of the words. Now, I don't want you to be mushmouth, unless the character is mushmouth. But just reading what you just said, when directed to read something conversational, but copy is written more formally, is it okay to relax and read with contractions or other... That wasn't a conversational read. When directed to read something conversational, but the copy is written more formally, is it okay to relax the read with contractions or other casual words? That was more conversational. And that's the difference. When we're not being conversational, we are paying so much attention to, I'm going to read these words and I'm going to make sure that they sound okay. The other thing is, the real challenge of this is making other people's words your own. When you're playing a character, letting that character speak through you. And how we touch the character is, as human beings, we have the full extent and range of emotions and attitudes that any other human being might have. We might not always display them ourselves in our own lives, but we're going to run into characters that do. So we need to familiarize ourselves with, how would that feel? How does that come out? We make some assumptions sometimes. One of the things that I mention a lot, anger shows up a lot in video games. And typically when something is angry, people make it loud. Anger does not have to be loud. Do you understand? Yeah. Tarzan, yeah, but it was a bit quirky. Oh, man. No, I needed to have gone through years of therapy because of Tarzan. Love the live stream. Oh, thanks so much, Stefano. The Kinky Eye is also an example of that. Absolutely. Well, there was a time in America, and this is Black History Month. And I've said it before, and I've read it in a few places. Black History Month is not for Black people. Black History Month is for people who aren't Black, because our history has not been taught to you. You don't know about the great empires of Africa. You don't know about the Black Moors who conquered Spain and gave Europe, taught Europeans to bathe, about different dishes at dinner. The architecture that we still have here, these Mediterranean houses, that's Africa. We don't talk about the Black Holocaust, where European nations like Leopold went there and killed 10 million people. And imagine that happening, the French doing it, the Belgians doing it, the English doing it, the Germans doing it. These are the kinds of lack of information, lack of story about certain people on the planet that allow other people on the planet, well, these people don't have any history. What did they ever do? Richest man in the world ever, Mansu Musa, black man. Muslim, 1300s, he took a trip to Mecca, took so much gold, it messed up the economy, dropping gold on poor people. And he's one of the main reasons Europeans went to Africa, because they heard about Mansu Musa. All right. One thing I've noticed about novels, 90% of them are not written to be spoken, even though audiobooks are being done for them. Some commercial copy is the same issue. As the VO, how do you approach that commercial copy with a proper tact? Man, I had this conversation today at the job I was doing, reading children's books. Because some of them are written very well and are very much written to be read, and some of them are just not. Now, with audiobooks, you have to be true to the book. You can't just change things to make it more conversational for yourself. So you just have to do the best you can. And I guarantee you'll go a long way if you just soften your enunciation. Read the phrases, say the phrases. There's an acting teacher, I don't know his name, people have mentioned him to me. What they mention is his saying that there are no such things as words. There are only phrases. I'll tell you another reason to read the phrases, not the words. When there are words that you really do need to hit, that your character really does need to emphasize, it'll be so much easier because you haven't been emphasizing everything else. And what you don't realize is when you are reading the words, and Thomas, I'll read that. One thing I've noticed about novels, 90% of them are not written to be spoken, even though audiobooks are being done for them. Some commercial copy has the same issue. That wasn't conversational. It might work on something, on some narration of some kind, and some children's books, being that specific with the enunciation might work. But most of the time, we're not that conversational. One thing I've noticed about novels, 90% of them are not written to be spoken, even though audiobooks are being done for them. Some commercial copy has the same issue. That's more conversational. And it's a matter of not caring about you understanding each individual word, or I should say, understanding that you're going to understand what I'm saying. When we pick up that written word and we're reading it for commercial, for book, for whatever, we have this tendency, I want to make sure that everybody understands what I'm saying. And we don't trust that we're just enough saying it. We're enough saying it. Good question, fella. Wait for Dave, want to hear, what's that, Clinton here? Good question. Want to wait, do Dave, or do you want to hear my perspective? Replying to Danny. You know what? I'm not getting into that. I'm not sure what you guys were talking about there. Michael Scott, looking forward to the webinar. David Laidley. My potential not-for-profit organization, Filmmakers Helping Filmmakers, is going to learn a lot from your years of experience. Do you have any advice for upstart filmmakers about how to work with actors like yourself? Good director, make it simple. Make it simple. If you can paint the picture of why your character is saying what your character's saying, what the situation is, how they feel about it, why they're reacting the way they're reacting, that helps a lot. The best directors kind of give you a scenario. Oh, well, this happened, but you actually feel like this. As opposed to, this and that, and if you're just going on and on and on and too wordy, it doesn't work. Also, we are sensitive beings. Be kind to the actor. And understand if they haven't gotten it in 2 or 3 takes, they're not going to get it. You might either need to recast or find a different way to describe what it is you're trying to describe. Also, if you've got a good actor, trust that actor. The actor needs to know, what the content and the direction is, the motivation and so forth. But trust the actor, because much like video games, acting in general, I shouldn't say much like video games, but just acting in general, movies, television, stage, video games, cartoons, it's a collaborative art. You hire somebody because they bring that very special one thing, the thing that they do. I won't say one thing. If you've got a movie and you hire Denzel, you're hiring Denzel because Denzel brings Denzel. Whatever that special thing that Denzel has. Trust that with an actor. Don't try to make this actor be that actor. Let the actor be themselves. Rhonda Alexander, what kind of advice can you offer to get local gigs regularly when you are unknown in the industry? How large of a market is Chicago? Any tips? Chicago's a pretty big market, especially for commercials. It is one of the best markets for commercials. And not being there, I can't tell you what new is there. I would imagine narration and corporate narr and e-learning are probably doing well there as well. There are also some television shows there now. So I would imagine that there is some work there for loop groups. They've got their local stations, so some TV promos, and you can work from anywhere on the planet now. So TV promos, I'm sure, are happening there, not like New York and Los Angeles, but there's definitely work in Chicago. Chicago is and has been one of the best voiceover markets. How do you get known in an industry? You work hard. Have good demos. When you get work, show up on time, be pleasant, be good. Make sure your agent, if you're represented, knows what it is that you want to do. You're in communication with them and you have them mentioning your name. Find out who the people are, even beyond your agent. The same people your agent is contacting, you should be contacting. Sending them demos, sending them notes. If you're that new person, and maybe even if you're not, you've worked with somebody, send them a thank you. Thank you for hiring me. I've got, don't have one right there. I'm drinking out of something else, but I've got Dave Fennoy coffee cups. I just happen to have a Dave Fennoy keychain here, and sometimes I give those out. Usually I give these out sometimes to students when I'm having a little contest. All right, who's would have booked this? And I don't vote. I let the students vote, and then I get a keychain. A keychain, really, Dave? Thanks. But all those, when I was new, and I'm losing my voice here. When I was new, mail was still a thing. So, I sent out postcards. I got lists of broadcast producers and people doing promos in the different networks. Sent them my demo, sent them notes. And a lot of people are doing that. So, one, you want your name to get in front of them, but you want to show up and do good work. And sooner or later, if you're doing good work and showing up and being a pleasant person that they can count on, you will do well. You will do well. There was a time one of the greats, Ernie Anderson, could come in and cuss everybody out. Too many people knocking on these doors now. Nobody wants to put up with that. I'll mention another name of Don LaFontaine, who could have gone in and cussed people out because His voice and read were so important for movies and dramas on television. But that's not the guy he was. He came in, he was a wonderful human being. So you don't, I used to joke around, I'm going to have to become difficult to work with to become really huge. And it's just not true. Just not true. Show up, do good work, make sure you promote yourself, and, the market will find you. Funny thing, too, I mentioned people were talking about auditioning sometimes and, who gets the job, because it's usually not because your read was so much better than any of the other people. You'll have 5 or 10 people whose reads were great, but does this voice fit with that voice? And one of the criteria beyond the craziness of does the person who has the most social media people, followers, sometimes you're going to get hired because, wow, let's get that new guy. Yeah, that new girl. Yeah, we just heard a fresh new voice. And then sometimes it's going to be, you know what, let's hire Dave Fennoy because, we know he can give it to us because he's always given it to us. And by the same token, they might turn around and go, you know what, Dave Fennoy's been on so many things. Let's hire somebody not as well known. Please don't do that. Please don't do that, people who hire. We do have some sort of webinar coming up. I'll be doing a thing with Eliza Jane Snyder next week, as a matter of fact. And more on that later. As a matter of fact, I'll send out some information. How much does audition scripts vary in format for radio dramas, and what format and information do you prefer? What? How much does audition vary for radio drama? Generally, they're very much like video game auditions, and the video game audition scripts are very different from one another. Different companies present them in a whole different way. Sometimes you get a lot of information about the character. Sometimes you don't get very much. Sometimes you get a lot of information about what the game is like. Sometimes you don't get very much. Sometimes there's a picture. Sometimes there's not. It's a little bit of the Wild West out there. So when you don't get enough information like the picture, the character description, their motivation, perhaps a bit of character arc, and what the game is like and what genre it is, when you don't get that, you have to make it up based on what clues you find in the script. Oh, we're getting down here. Okay. They teach about ancient Kemet. Yeah. Blackmore's and Shakespeare's plays. They didn't tell you about it. Okay. Do you think there's enough work out there to do a documentary styles of read all day long? Do you think there are enough potential clients? I'm not sure if I'm making sense to you. No, I understand, because I remember your demo and your documentary read is just marvelous. You have a wonderful voice and a wonderful feel for it. You might want to expand what you're doing a little bit. For some things, for some commercials even, that documentary read would work. And because there are so many documentaries these days, and I'm not just talking about, we've got the History Channel and Discovery Channel and all the channels that do the nature shows, but we have documentaries about war. We have documentaries about places to travel. We have documentaries about so many things now that show up on networks, but also documentaries in museums. That's a market to hit that perhaps you haven't thought about. A lot of museums out there, and beyond just showing you the artwork or the history or the bones of the dinosaurs, they want to tell the stories of that period, that battle, that whatever it is that they're showing. They need voices for that. That would be a good market for you. Assad Shams. Yeah, you're late to the party, man. We're about to close this party down. VO swag is always good. Unrelated, but if you want to send a gift to you, how do we do that? Oh, that's so sweet. You know what? You would just private message me and I would send you an address to send it to. Okay, getting close to the end. I appreciate your taking the time to answer all these amazing questions and then helping the next generation to be the best they can be. The next generation? What are you saying? I'm old, kid. Do you go to any improv or on-camera classes? When I can. Usually I'm just a little busy to take some classes, but I do from time to time. I did a promo class a couple years ago with a buddy of mine, and just sometimes, I don't care who you are, you want to get somebody else's ears and brain who you trust, giving you a critique of what you're doing. One of the dangers we fall into is we're doing something that's working, especially a commercial read. You're in a commercial read that's working for you and you've been booked and you're doing it and you're doing it and you're doing it. And then the world has kind of moved on a little bit. And now that read's not working that much because you've fallen into some patterns that were working. They're kind of comfortable and you're doing that thing that you do. But now that thing that you do isn't as special anymore. And sometimes you need somebody to help you get out of that. So when you find yourself in a rut, that's the time to start knocking on some doors to find somebody who can help you get out of that rut and open up some other areas in you to let out. And with that, I'm going to have to call it a night. A reminder, back again next Wednesday and next Thursday, the 28th, doing a webinar, 6 o'clock, go to webinar on narration, TV promos, video games, and auditioning. 6 o'clock, and you can, the link is on my Facebook page in a few places. Just click on it, and I'll see you there. And I'll see you next Wednesday. All the best, everybody. Thanks so much. Good questions. Good questions.